The hallway of the intergalactic space station was cold and silent. This was Sector 4, the highest security zone in the galaxy. Usually, this place was busy with robots and guards, but today, it felt like a graveyard. The only sound was the heavy breathing of the guards standing outside room 402. These guards were not human. They were Krells, 7-foot-tall aliens with thick armor and powerful weapons. But right now, their hands were shaking. They were staring at the heavy steel door of room 402 as if a ghost was behind it. Inside that room sat Xara. To the rest of the galaxy, Xara was not a person. She was a level 10 threat. She was the last of a forgotten species known as the Voidwalkers. Rumors said that Xara didn't need a gun to kill. Her mind was so powerful that anyone who stayed near her for more than a minute would lose their mind. They would see their worst nightmares and scream until their hearts stopped. 2 days ago, a group of elite alien soldiers tried to move her. They didn't even last 10 seconds. They ran out of the room, crying and begging for mercy. Since then, no one dared to go near the door. "We should just vent the oxygen and kill it," one guard whispered. His voice was full of fear. "We can't," the captain replied. "The High Council wants her alive. She knows the location of the ancient core. But no one is brave enough to talk to her. It's a suicide mission." Suddenly, the heavy sound of boots hitting the metal floor echoed through the hallway. Thump. 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 The guards turned around, raising their weapons. They expected a team of super soldiers or a battle robot. But instead, they saw a single man. He was a human. He looked around 40 years old. His uniform was old and dusty. He wasn't wearing a helmet or high-tech armor. In his right hand, he held a simple paper cup filled with steaming hot coffee. He looked tired, like a man who had just finished a long day of work and wanted to go home. This was Captain Jack. The Krell guards were confused. "Who are you?" "This area is restricted," the captain shouted. Jack didn't stop. He took a slow sip of his coffee and looked at the sign on the door, "Room 402, do not enter." "I'm the new guy," Jack said. His voice was calm and deep. "I heard you have a problem with the lady inside." The Krell captain laughed nervously. "A problem? Human, you don't understand. That is not a lady. That is a monster. If you open that door, she will tear your mind apart. You will see things that will make you wish you were never born." Jack looked at the door, then back at the guard. He gave a small, tired smile. "Buddy, I've lived on Earth my whole life. I've seen politics, I've seen internet comment sections, and I've seen my ex-wife when she's angry. I think I can handle a bit of scary thoughts." The guards stepped back. They thought this human was crazy. "You are going to die," they warned. "Maybe," Jack shrugged. "But my coffee is getting cold, so let's get this over with." Jack reached out his hand and pressed the button to unlock the door. The guards gasped and scrambled away, hiding behind pillars. They expected a blast of energy or a terrifying scream. The heavy door slid open with a hiss. Inside, the room was dark. The only light came from a small purple glow in the center. There, sitting on the cold floor, was Xara. Her skin was pale, and her long white hair floated in the air as if she were underwater. Her eyes were closed, but the air around her was vibrating with pure terror. As soon as the door opened, a wave of fear energy hit the hallway. The guards outside fell to their knees, clutching their heads. They saw visions of fire and death. The pressure was so strong it felt like the walls were closing in. But Jack just walked in. He didn't scream. He didn't fall. He didn't even flinch. He walked right into the center of the dark room. Xara's eyes snapped open. They were glowing with a terrifying dark light. She looked at Jack, waiting for him to start screaming like the others. She pushed her power toward him, filling his mind with images of darkness and loneliness. Jack stopped. He looked around the empty, cold room. Then, he looked at Xara. The guards watching through the security cameras held their breath. They waited for Jack to collapse. Instead, they heard something impossible. Jack laughed. It wasn't a mean laugh. It was a soft, gentle chuckle. "Man," he said, looking at Xara. "They really didn't give you any furniture in here, did they? This floor is freezing." Xara froze. Her power was still hitting him, but he was reacting as if it were just a light breeze. She stared at him in shock. No one had ever spoken to her like a normal person before. Jack walked a bit closer. The fear energy was screaming in his ears, but he ignored it. He slowly sat down on the... He took another sip of his coffee, exhaled a long breath, and looked at the glowing alien woman. "The name's Jack," he said simply. "And honestly, I've had a really bad day. Do you mind if I just sit here for a while?" The entire space station went silent. The monster of room 402 didn't attack. She didn't kill him. For the first time in centuries, Xara looked confused. She looked at the man, then at the coffee, and then at the floor. Outside, the guards couldn't believe their eyes. A human soldier was sitting next to the most dangerous being in the galaxy, acting like they were old friends at a park. The silence inside room 402 was heavy. Outside, in the control room, the high commander of the station was staring at the monitor with wide eyes. "Zoom in," the commander barked. "How is that human still breathing? His heart rate should be 200 beats per minute by now. Why is it normal?" Inside the room, Xara was also wondering the same thing. She was a void walker. Her species didn't use words, they used emotions. She could feel the fear of every living thing within a mile. To her, fear was like a smell, and usually, the smell was disgusting. But this human, Jack, smelled different. He smelled like old leather, coffee, and something she hadn't felt in 1,000 years, peace. Xara finally spoke. Her voice didn't come from her mouth, it echoed directly inside Jack's head. It sounded like the wind blowing through a graveyard. "Human," she whispered in his mind. "Do you not see the shadows behind me? Do you not see the ghosts of everyone I have killed?" Jack took another sip of his coffee. He didn't even jump at the voice in his head. "I see them," he said calmly, looking at the dark, swirling shadows around her. "But honestly, they look a lot like the shadows I see every time I close my eyes. You're not the only one with a past, Xara." Xara leaned closer. Her face was inches from his. Her eyes were like two black holes. "I can show you your worst nightmare. I can make you feel the pain of 1,000 suns. Why are you sitting here? Why are you laughing?" Jack put his coffee cup down on the floor. He looked her straight in the eyes. "I laughed because you're trying so hard to be scary. But I see you, Xara. You're not a monster. You're just lonely. And back home, we have a saying, misery loves company. So, I figured you could use some." This made Xara angry. She didn't want sympathy. She wanted him to run. She wanted him to be afraid like everyone else. She decided to use her ultimate power. She placed her cold, pale hand on Jack's forehead. Outside, the guards screamed, "No. It's over. He's dead." Xara forced herself into Jack's mind. She wanted to find his greatest fear and use it against him. She expected to see a weak, fragile human mind. Instead, she found a fortress. Inside Jack's mind, Xara saw memories of Earth. She saw great wars, burning cities, and people fighting for their lives. She saw a planet that was constantly trying to kill its own children with storms, viruses, and predators. She saw Jack as a young soldier, standing in the middle of a battlefield, holding his wounded friend while bombs fell around them. The fear that Xara tried to create was nothing compared to the reality Jack had already lived. Suddenly, Xara pulled her hand back as if she had been burned. She was shaking. Her purple glow dimmed. For the first time, she felt small. "Your world," she whispered, her real voice cracking. "It is a world of monsters. How did you survive?" Jack looked at his hands, then back at her. "We didn't just survive. We learned to live with the monsters. We learned that even in the dark, you can find a way to smile. That's the human secret, Xara. We are built to break, but we never stay broken." Xara looked down at the floor. The terrifying aura around her began to disappear. "The shadows retreat. They are coming to take me back," she whispered, her voice trembling. "They will kill you to get to me." Jack checked his weapon. It was a standard-issue human pistol, nothing compared to the high-tech lasers the hunters used. He looked at the door, then back at the terrified monster beside him. He didn't run. He didn't call for backup. Instead, Jack stood in front of Xara, shielding her with his body. He cracked his neck and gave a small, dangerous smirk. "Well," Jack said, his voice cold as ice. "I guess it's a good thing I brought my gun. Xara, stay behind me. I've had a long day, and I'm really not in the mood for uninvited guests." The door of room 402 began to glow red as a thermal cutter started slicing through the steel from the outside. The hunters were here. Jack took a deep breath. "Hey, Xara." "Yes," she whispered. "Don't worry about the ghosts anymore," Jack said, pointing his gun at the door. "The real monsters just arrived. And they're about to find out why humans are the most dangerous thing in this galaxy." A cloud of smoke and sparks filled the room. 3 massive figures stepped through the ruins. These were the Star Hunters. They were 7 feet tall, covered in black biological armor that looked like insect shells. Their eyes were glowing red sensors, and they carried phase rifles that could disintegrate a building. The leader of the hunters, a cruel creature named Karg, looked at the scene and stopped. He expected to see Xara screaming in a corner. He did not expect to see a tired-looking human standing in his way, holding a small metal pistol. Karg let out a clicking sound, the alien version of a laugh. "Step aside, meatbag," Karg's translator box hissed. "You are a human. Your species is weak. Your bones break like dry sticks. Why do you stand in front of our prize?" Jack didn't move. He didn't even look scared. He actually leaned against a wall, looking bored. "You're right," Jack said, his voice strangely calm. "Humans are soft. We don't have shells like you. We don't have sensors for eyes. But there's one thing you forgot about us." "And what is that?" Karg asked, raising his weapon. "We don't like being told what to do," Jack whispered. Suddenly, Jack moved. He didn't fire his gun at the armored leader. Instead, he fired at the overhead fire suppression pipes. Bang! 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 The pipes burst, spraying high-pressure freezing chemicals everywhere. The room was instantly filled with a thick, white fog. The hunters' red sensors were blinded by the chemical mist. They started firing wildly, purple laser beams cutting through the air, but they couldn't see Jack. But Jack didn't need sensors. He was a human. He grew up playing in the dark. He moved like a ghost through the fog. One hunter felt a sharp pain in his leg. Jack had slid across the floor and driven a simple combat knife into a gap in the alien's armor. The hunter roared, but before he could turn around, Jack was gone again. Inside the chaos, Xara was watching. Her purple eyes could see through the fog. She saw Jack, bleeding from a small cut on his forehead, his heart pounding like a drum, his muscles screaming in pain. She had never seen anything like it. Every other species she knew would have surrendered or run. But Jack was getting faster. "He is dying," Xara whispered to herself. His body is failing, yet he is fighting harder. Suddenly, Karg, the leader, grabbed Jack by the throat. He slammed Jack against the wall with enough force to crack the concrete. Jack's pistol fell to the floor. Karg leaned in, his mandibles clicking near Jack's face. "Your tricks are over, human. You are bleeding. Your oxygen is low. You are finished." Jack looked at Karg. His face was covered in blood, but he was smiling. It was a terrifying, toothy grin that made the alien hunter freeze. "You guys really don't get it, do you?" Jack gasped, coughing up a bit of blood. "You think pain makes us stop. But for a human, pain is—" In that moment, something incredible happened. When Xara touched Jack, she didn't just feel his pain. She felt his will. She felt the thousands of years of human history, the stubbornness of a species that refused to go extinct. Xara stood up. Her long white hair began to glow with a fierce, blinding light. The fear aura she usually had changed. It was no longer a dark shadow, it was a burning golden flame. "Leave him alone." Xara's voice boomed like thunder. The hunters were still blinded, trying to find their bearings. Xara didn't wait. She used her telekinetic power to lift the heavy metal fragments of the broken door. With a wave of her hand, she sent the metal flying like bullets. The hunters were pinned against the wall by the flying debris. Their armor cracked. Their weapons were crushed. They were the most feared mercenaries in the galaxy, and they were being defeated by a monster and a weak human. But the fight wasn't over. Outside in the hallway, the sound of 100 more boots echoed. The Star Hunters had brought an entire army. The wall began to shake as a heavy tank laser prepared to fire from the corridor. Jack dragged himself up, using a pipe for support. He looked at the door, then at Xara. "They have a small army out there, Jack," Xara said, her voice trembling. "We can't win this." Jack wiped the blood from his eyes and picked up his gun. He looked at the camera in the corner, knowing the station commander was watching. "Hey, Xara," Jack said, his voice steady again. "Do you know what the most dangerous thing in the universe is?" Xara shook her head. "A human who has nothing left to lose," Jack replied. He looked at her and gave her a wink. "And right now, I'm really annoyed." Suddenly, the wall didn't just break, it was ripped open from the outside. But it wasn't the hunters. A new voice came over the station speakers. It was a human voice, sharp, cold, and professional. "This is the Human United Fleet. We heard one of our soldiers was having a bad day. To the Star Hunters, you have 10 seconds to drop your weapons, or we will turn this entire sector into dust." Jack laughed, a real, loud laugh this time. He sat back down next to Xara, ignoring the army outside. "See?" Jack said, taking a shaky sip of his now cold coffee. "I told you. We don't like being told what to do. And we always bring backup." But as the human fleet began their attack, Xara noticed something. Jack's eyes were closing. He was losing too much blood. "Jack. Stay with me," she begged. The suspense reached its peak. The room was surrounded by fire, an army was at the door, and the only man who had ever treated Xara like a person was slipping away. The air in Sector 4 was thick with the smell of burnt metal and blood. Outside the space station, the scene was chaotic. Massive human warships had jumped out of hyperspace, their railguns firing giant slugs that tore through the Star Hunters' fleet. The galaxy had never seen a species respond so fast and so violently for just one man. But inside room 402, time seemed to slow down. Xara held Jack's head in her lap. The brave human soldier was silent now. His eyes were closed, and his skin was turning a ghostly shade of gray. The fear energy that usually surrounded Xara was gone, replaced by a deep, hollow sadness. "Jack, wake up," Xara whispered. "You said you were tired, but you can't sleep now. Not like this." Outside the door, the Star Hunter leader, Karg, was crawling through the rubble. He was badly hurt, but his hatred was stronger than his pain. He saw his fleet being destroyed on his monitors. He knew he wouldn't escape. "If I die, the monster dies with me," Karg growled. He pulled out a small, glowing black cube. It was a void compressor, a forbidden weapon that creates a localized black hole. It would swallow the entire Sector 4, including Jack and Xara. Karg pressed the button. The cube began to hum with a terrifying, high-pitched sound. The gravity in the room started to shift. Objects began to float, then were suddenly pulled toward the cube with violent force. Xara felt the shift. She looked at the glowing cube in Karg's hand through the hole in the wall. She knew what it was. Her own people had been destroyed by weapons like that. She looked at Jack. If she stayed here, he would be crushed into nothingness. If she tried to run, the guards would shoot her. But then, she remembered the feeling of Jack's mind. The Krell guards, who were hiding nearby, saw her and screamed. But Xara didn't look at them. She walked straight toward Karg. The gravity from the black hole cube was pulling everything in, but Xara walked as if she were on solid ground. She was a void walker, and the void was her home. Karg looked up in horror. What are you?" Xara didn't answer with words. She raised her hand, and the black hole energy from the cube didn't explode, it flowed into her. She was absorbing the weapon itself. The cube turned to dust in Karg's hand. "I am the nightmare you created," Xara's voice echoed through the entire station. With a flick of her wrist, Karg was thrown through 3 metal walls, disappearing into the darkness of the station's vents. But the danger wasn't over. The station was falling apart because of the battle outside. Massive explosions were shaking the floor. Suddenly, a group of human marines in heavy power armor smashed through the ceiling. They landed with a heavy thud, their guns pointed at Xara. "Don't move, alien," the Marine sergeant shouted. Xara didn't flinch. She pointed at the floor behind her, where Jack lay unconscious. "He is dying," she said, her voice trembling with emotion. "Save him. If you don't save him, I will let this entire station burn." The Marines looked at Jack. Their sensors showed his vitals were dropping fast. "He's one of ours." "Medical, get in here now," the sergeant barked. The Marines rushed to Jack. They didn't attack Xara, even though she looked like a goddess of death. They saw the blood on her hands, Jack's blood, and they realized she wasn't the enemy. She was the one who had kept him alive. As the medics started working on Jack, injecting him with advanced human nanites, the station took a massive hit from a Star Hunter kamikaze ship. Crack! The floor beneath them split open. The atmosphere started venting into space. A massive suction began to pull everything out into the cold vacuum. One of the medics lost his footing and started sliding toward the hole. "I've got him," the sergeant yelled, but the wind was too strong. Xara didn't hesitate. She used her powers to create a void seal over the hole, stopping the air from escaping. It was a massive use of energy. Her nose started to bleed, and her purple glow flickered. "Go!" Xara shouted to the Marines. "Take him to your ship. I can't hold this forever." "What about you?" the sergeant asked, surprised by her sacrifice. "I am a monster, remember?" Xara said with a sad smile. "Go. Save the only friend I ever had." The Marines carried Jack toward their transport ship. But as they left, the station's main reactor began to go into meltdown. The entire place was about to become a sun. The suspense was unbearable. Jack was safe, but Xara was trapped in a dying station, holding the walls together with her last bit of strength. Just as the Marine's ship pulled away, Jack's eyes fluttered open for a second. He saw Xara standing alone in the middle of the fire and the vacuum. "Xara," he whispered, his voice barely audible. Then, the station exploded in a brilliant flash of light, Captain Jack lay in a high-tech medical bed on the human command ship, the SS Retribution. His body was covered in bandages, and machines were humming around him, fixing his broken ribs and burns. But Jack's mind was not at peace. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw Xara's face, her black eyes, her sad smile, and the way she stood alone against the fire to save him. The door to the medical bay slid open. Admiral Vance, a man with a scarred face and a cold stare, walked in. "You should be dead, Jack," the Admiral said, looking at the monitors. "No human has ever survived a direct hit from a Voidwalker's energy field, let alone a station explosion." Jack pulled the oxygen mask off his face. His voice was raspy. "Where is she?" The Admiral sighed and looked away. "There is nothing left, Jack. The station was vaporized. Our sensors scanned the debris for miles. There was no life sign. Xara is gone." Jack felt a sharp pain in his chest, and it wasn't from his injuries. Jack's eyes flashed with anger. This was the HFY spirit. Humans were loyal to their own, and to Jack, Xara was one of them now. "She saved my life. She saved your Marines. And this is how you thank her." "It's war, Jack," the Admiral said as he walked out. "Get some rest. We're heading back to Earth." But Jack didn't rest. That night, when the ship was quiet, he crawled out of his bed. Every movement was painful, but he didn't care. He sneaked into the ship's sensor room. He needed to see the data for himself. He sat at the main console and began to play the recording of the explosion. He slowed it down to 1,000th of a second. He watched the station blow up. He saw the white light. But then, he saw something else. Just a millisecond before the final blast, a tiny ripple appeared in space, a void jump. It was so small that the military sensors had missed it. "I knew it," Jack breathed. "She didn't die. She stepped into the void." Suddenly, a small red light started blinking on the screen. It was a signal. It wasn't a radio wave or a laser message. It was a heartbeat. A rhythmic pulse coming from a dark, empty sector of space known as the Dead Zone. This area of space had no stars, no planets, and no light. No one ever went there because ships simply disappeared. But then, the signal changed. It wasn't just a heartbeat anymore. It was a code. A simple human code that Jack had taught Xara during their short time together in the room. Dot. Dot. Dash. In Morse code, it meant, HELP. Jack's heart raced. She was alive, but she was trapped in the dark, and she was calling for him. But there was a problem. Jack noticed a second group of signals on the map. The Star Hunters hadn't given up either. They had better sensors than the humans, and they were already moving toward the Dead Zone. They wanted to capture Xara while she was weak. Jack knew he couldn't tell the Admiral. The humans would kill her, and the Star Hunters would torture her. He had to go alone. Jack stole a stealth interceptor, a small, fast ship designed for Black Ops missions. He bypassed the hangar security and launched into the darkness. As he entered the Dead Zone, his ship's lights began to flicker. The sensors went crazy. Outside the window, the stars disappeared. It was like flying into a bottle of black ink. Suddenly, a massive shadow appeared in front of him. It wasn't a planet. It was a ghost ship, an ancient, rotting vessel from a forgotten war. And the heartbeat signal was coming from inside it. Jack docked his ship and stepped out, holding his gun and a flashlight. The air inside the ghost ship was freezing. "Xara," he called out. His voice echoed through the empty metal halls. Suddenly, he heard a sound behind him. A heavy, metallic clank. Jack turned around and saw a dozen red eyes glowing in the dark. It wasn't the Star Hunters. It was something worse. These were ancient droids, left behind to guard the ship. They were programmed to kill anything that breathed. Jack was trapped. He was injured, alone, and surrounded by killing machines in the middle of a dark void. But then, a voice whispered in his head. A voice he knew very well. "Jack, you shouldn't have come. You're not a monster, Xara," Jack gasped, struggling to breathe. "You're just scared. And back on Earth, we have another saying, the only thing we have to fear is fear itself." He reached out and, despite the terrifying energy, he grabbed her hand. It felt like touching a block of dry ice, but he didn't let go. "Look at me," Jack said, his eyes burning with that stubborn human spirit. "I'm just a guy with a bad back and a cold cup of coffee. And I'm not leaving without my friend." The purple glow in Xara's eyes flickered. For a moment, she looked like herself again. But the moment was broken by a loud, metallic crash. The Star Hunters had arrived. 3 massive dropships smashed through the hull of the ghost ship. Hundreds of hunters in heavy battlesuits poured out. They weren't taking any chances this time. They brought a nullification grid, a giant machine designed to strip a Voidwalker of her powers. The grid activated. A sickly green light filled the room. Xara fell to her knees, screaming in pain. The black symbols on her skin began to fade. Finally, a hunter commander shouted, stepping forward. "The human is a nuisance, but the weapon is ours." Jack looked at Xara, then at the army of hunters. He was out of ammo. He was surrounded. Most people would have surrendered. But Jack was a human soldier. And humans are most dangerous when they are trapped. Jack saw a pile of unstable fuel cells near the hunter's nullification machine. He looked at Xara and whispered, "Trust me." Jack didn't use a gun. He grabbed a heavy metal pipe from the floor and threw it with all his strength into the hunter's power generator. Spark. Shock. Boom. The generator exploded, sending a wave of electricity through the room. The nullification grid short-circuited. The green light turned into a chaotic storm of energy. "Now, Xara!" Jack yelled. "Give them hell!" With her powers returned and fueled by Jack's bravery, Xara didn't just fight, she became a storm. She didn't kill the hunters, she simply unmade them, turning their armor into dust and sending them flying into the vacuum of space. In less than a minute, the entire Star Hunter army was gone. The ghost ship was falling apart. "We have to go," Jack shouted, dragging Xara toward his stealth ship. They jumped into the cockpit just as the ghost ship vanished into a black hole created by Xara's final burst of energy. The aftermath. Weeks later, on a small, hidden planet at the edge of the galaxy, a place with blue water and green trees that looked a lot like Earth, 2 figures sat on a beach. One was a man with graying hair, wearing a simple t-shirt and shorts. He was holding a fishing pole. The other was a woman with long white hair and bright purple eyes. She was watching the sunset, a peaceful smile on her face. The galaxy still talked about them. The High Council was looking for them. The Star Hunters were too afraid to even say their names. But here, they were just Jack and Xara. "You know," Xara said, her voice now soft and human again. "The others still think you're crazy. They don't understand why a human would risk his entire species for one monster." Jack laughed, that same gentle laugh from room 402.